everyone. Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurship Decoded. Today I have an amazing guest, Patrick Powers. He is the founder of the second biggest business meetup in the world and an expert in influence in marketing. So thank you, Patrick, for joining me. How are you doing today?
Incredible, Alex, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. So today you're an expert and you are a founder of just the second biggest company in the world. That's
Business Meetup Group is
yeah,
unfortunately not the second biggest company in the world. That would have been pretty cool, but not quite there yet. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
Although I have no intention or ambition to have a company that size. It's not really what I'm about.
Yeah, well, that's great too. But where you were at now, you had to start somewhere. You had to have had like a moment, experience something that just changed your life to drive you to become the person you are today. So you want to give us just that backstory of where you came from?
Yeah, no worries. I think the first moment that really changed my life was when I was approximately, say, 19 years old, and I was under education as a landscape gardener, and I hated it. And for some reason, even though I was the youngest apprentice in the company, the boss was kind of putting me in charge of some projects, like big projects. As a landscape gardener, you do a lot of bricklaying, like you create parking lots, like big projects like new build, as well as you also maintaining gardens. But some of these projects are quite big. And there was a day where it was basically in winter time where weather really affects a building project like that, and sometimes it can be really bad if it rains too much or if it snows too much. And that project just went sour. And the boss blamed me, even though there was way more senior people. And I don't know why, but he seemed to like assume that I was leading people, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, he was in front of all my colleagues, literally shouting into my face, like he was red in his face, "You're completely worthless," right? And then he used an expression that, like, I haven't found this out, so Denmark, so I'm from Denmark. He said, "You don't even have what it takes to become a milk delivery boy," right? And that's basically another way to say that you're completely and utterly useless, right? And so at that moment, literally, I was seething inside because I knew I had nothing to do with that project's failure. I just decided I'm going to be my own boss, and I'm going to do a heck of a lot better job than he is. So that was the first moment that really turned my life around. So I started my first business when I was 21, and I was absolutely amazing success at being a failure. Right, I was just failing over and over and over again in one business after the other. The first one, I went bankrupt the first year, and then I went into lots of different home-based businesses that didn't require that much capital investment. And over the years, I was starting at least 14 different businesses that failed until in late 2002. Next turning point in my life, I was so low because for a while I'd just been so unhappy with life, and I was just completely miserable. And then my girlfriend broke up with me, and that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And I decided, I was in so much pain. I said, I cannot stand this life anymore. I will succeed in business now. I don't care what I have to do within the law and ethics and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to move outside of my comfort zone. I will make it. And it was amazing, Alex. I mean, it was literally like flicking on a switch. From one moment to the next, I was actually quite successful. So I joined a network marketing company, and within a very, very short time, literally like 3 months, I was practically full-time, quit my job, went to the U.S., stayed with my business partners in the U.S., learned everything I could about the business. And then within about 7-8 months, I was financially free, and I was just traveling the world. Lived in Spain for a while, Canada, Dominican Republic, St. Lucia in the Caribbean, all kinds of cool places. So that was kind of the beginning of the story.
No, that's great. I love how you kind of explained just your whole life, just going up to where you are right now, and then hitting that just rock bottom, even below that. And so,
I haven't even gotten to the bottom yet, but I'll get to that.
Oh yeah, do you want to explain that story? Just like the lowest point you've ever been in your life and how
Yeah,
you got
sure.
out of
So, okay, so I mean that point where I decided, okay, this is it, I'm going to succeed. That was definitely one of the lowest, but there's a very very concentrated period. So after I was succeeding in this company and I was living the life, never worrying about money, didn't work much actually, um, just just having fun and travel the world, learn from amazing people in the marketing field. Um, then I sold that business, which sounds crazy when I was having such a good time, but I was just looking for a new challenge. And I kind of got tired of, there was some maintenance and it was just the same pitches over and over again, doing the same trainings over again, saying the same things over and over again. I didn't feel that it was like really what I was meant to do. So I sold that business, and it was probably the right thing to sell it, but it was the wrong thing to sell it at that point because I hadn't placed any, well, I hadn't prepared any proper plan B, right? So I was just overconfident because I was actually the biggest distributor in Europe in that company that I was part of. And so it went to my head, and was just overconfident. I thought, hey, I'm not this hotshot marketer. I just know this stuff. I can just flick my fingers and build something back really quickly. Now that turned to be one of the biggest mistakes I did, right? So ended up in Dominican Republic, living in a perfect place, waterfront property, absolutely beautiful, and then running out of money because it was just not working. Part of that was also that I sold my business with a deal of getting 20% of the income for 5 years. So I was counting on getting like everything that I needed to take care of my basic costs, like my rent, my food, telephone bills, and whatever. At least to have those things in place. So I expected it. But the people that took over my business ran it into the ground. So suddenly I had 20% of almost nothing. And then within a couple of years, it was completely nothing. So suddenly it didn't have that buffer that I'd expected. So I would say it wasn't completely just my fault. There was certain things that happened out of my control, but it was mostly my fault. I was just overconfident. And so I came back to England, where I had a few connections, and I had a little bit of money in a safety deposit box. Landed in Heathrow Airport, Christmas morning, 2008, 2009, around that time. Um, and I had £100 in my hands. That's literally like all I had. I cleaned out, and I had £2,500 in a safety deposit box, which I could not access because it was Christmas. so, so imagine that. I didn't have any friends I could crash it, so I survived for 2 days until the safety deposit box opened, and I could get access to the 2,500. And like in terms of dollars, that's approximately $3,000. Okay, so not a lot. Use that to get for deposit for a new place, for my personal expenses and my business expenses, and I managed to survive. And I actually almost have no clue how I did it because I didn't really have any customers to speak of and whatever. But I started this meetup group that that now has become the biggest in Europe and second biggest in the world. But for the first couple of years, it was horrible. It was that was the lowest point in my life because I've been up quite high. I'd had the lifestyle that I always dreamed about, and most people dreams about, sipping martinis on the beach in the Caribbean and all that. And then suddenly I was almost destitute, right? And I was constantly worried about paying my rent. And so for 2-3 years, it was absolutely the worst part of my life, no doubt. If there's one thing that I can avoid in my life, I would just go back and delete that. It would just be that 3.5 years. So finally, it turned around, though. We became the biggest business media group in Europe, and then we kept on growing, overtaking more and more positions. And then because of that, has really been a big part in creating my brand and creating a lot of relationships in business that's been very, very valuable to me. And we're 27,500 members. And we're actually gaining a number one as well, quite strongly. So I would expect us to be number one in about a year.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing your story and just how you were go up and down, and just I think that's just the journey of entrepreneurship, that you have a really big high and then a really low, and then you just have to figure out how to work through that, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of talked about some of the mistakes, and I think everyone has those regrets and mistakes and things that they could just remove out of their life. But what do you feel like you learned from them and that helped you through everything else?
So first of all, be smart. Don't make say headless decisions just because you feel like there's a new path over here that's better for you. Be a little bit wiser in terms of um, having a plan B in place. That I would say that the funny thing is I've heard so many people say, including several of my mentors, has said first time successful, they make this mistake of thinking it'll last forever, and because of that they make stupid mistakes. They squander their money, and I wouldn't say I squandered my money, but I definitely could have taken way better care of them. And I spent most of my money on either travel or a huge amount on training and mentoring and coaching, which of course is the best investment you can make. But looking back, I could see that I was just buying trainings like crazy because I had the money. It's no worries. The money's going to come in next month. Let's just buy the $6,000 training or whatever. And it's just right. It definitely could have been a bit more wise with my money. Um, Also, I would say when it started going bad, don't you ever do what I did, which was starting to beat myself up emotionally, mentally. I was like, how could it be so stupid? You had the perfect life, the perfect girlfriend. How could you give this up? And just really deep into self-doubt. Okay. And I would just say, like, don't ever doubt yourself. I mean, you may have messed up. You may be 2 steps away from the street like I am, or you may be living on the street. I've met people that lived on the street and that are extremely successful people today, right? There's a big problem in attaching your self-worth to how much money you're making or how well you're doing or what other people think about you. You should never attach your self-worth to whatever other people think about you, right? That was a big mistake I made. And it actually made me sick. Like all that negative, like the natural stress that comes from being in a very tight spot financially, but coupled with all the self-blame about my decisions, that actually made me very sick. So suddenly I was getting brain fogs and chronic fatigue and all kinds of food intolerances and all kinds of stuff. So I'd say if you're listening out there and comparing yourself to other people and saying, oh my God, these are doing so much better, they're so much smarter than me, forget about that. Forget about it. You have a path in life and you're going to find that thing as long as you keep on moving forward and really provide value for other people. Do as well as you can. Don't be a slacker, right? But work hard on yourself. But as long as you're doing that, you should give yourself a pat on the back, because most of the people are not. Like the majority of the world, they're just surviving, and they don't want to do much other than surviving. It's one of the things I'm quite frustrated about the human race sometimes, because when you look out and you look at all the people in the world, maybe there's, I don't know, 10, 15, max 20% of people that really is providing value. Everybody else is just in it for themselves and then getting as much value as they can. Right. The secret to success really is providing value, but the secret to happiness is also providing value. Don't be in this game, in this life you have, just for yourself and just for surviving and having fun and partying. Go out there, because the joy of that will actually relatively soon go away. And I can tell you, because I used to do that in the Caribbean. I lived that life with my teens on the beach. And after a while, it just feels empty. It's meaningless, right? It's fun in the beginning, but then suddenly becomes meaningless. The only real deep joy and fulfillment comes from actually doing something in the world that is appreciated and makes a difference.
I completely agree. A lot of people feel like, especially if they're younger and they don't know what to do with their life, so they're just like, okay, I'm gonna go out and just have fun. But a lot of times that time when you're younger, or even any time in your life, it's it's always good to find personal growth, because when you're okay with yourself, that's when you can serve others and provide that value and really help others figure out the same thing that you just figured out. So that's
Yep.
great advice. I really appreciate that. So
Mhm.
with your business you're having right now, and you kind of explain a little bit more on like who you serve, who your customers are, and then
Sure. So I kind of have two different businesses at the moment, which is soon going to be one, right? So I do my marketing consulting and training. So I do a lot of training on finding the right message. Basically, everything I do is around how to find irresistible messages, or how to create irresistible messages that are irresistible to your marketplace, that they pay attention to and respond to, and then also how to deliver them in a way that's compelling. So that's one aspect, and the other aspect is building a community of entrepreneurs in London. And right now, it's super exciting times. Of course, we can't run the events because of COVID, but it looks like we're soon going to reopen over here. But we're actually in the process of scaling it to a platform that we can scale around the world, and we're going to have meetings, meetups, and events all around the world. That's the plan. We're scaling under the name of Founder Nation, because obviously entrepreneurs in London is not really relevant outside of London. So the Founder Nation, the platform and the community, the tribe, and the vision is really to build the biggest business tribe in the world. Because I found that there are three main elements that you have to have in business. You've got to have a community or a tribe that you can plug into. And the more really good connections, and not just connections, but actually relationships and deep relationships you have, the easier business is. The more I'm building my network, the more I realize that one of my biggest mistakes is not focusing on early in my career of really building that strong network. It really is, honestly, I just can't tell you how important that is. It saved me on several occasions, and then lately, because of the connections I've had, has been a huge part of my business, in terms of referrals and even from the direct connections I have, and getting business from them. So that's the two businesses: scaling the community of entrepreneurs in London, to Founder Nation. So connections is one of the things you have to have. The other thing is know-how and knowledge. That is just like insanely important as well. I was just doing a session with a guy I'm in a mastermind with this morning, and he's like a super specialist in digital marketing, and he showed me a couple things around YouTube SEO that was like, it was mind blowing, and it's like it was so simple once you knew it, but if you don't know it, you don't know it. So knowledge is number two thing. So your tribe, your knowledge, and then inspiration. So a constant inspiration, because we are fighting against, most of us are fighting against, I would say 99.5% of us are fighting against negative programming from our surroundings. And we need constant reprogramming of that. So that's the three things that we really supply in Founder Nation. It's the tribe, the community. It's the inspiration from top entrepreneurs, and that's going to be through our podcast, our YouTube channel, and then through the live events as well, and then the training platform with downloadable trainings, and as a center of it all, mastermind groups.
awesome. That sounds great. All those things together really, people need more positivity in their life. It doesn't matter, even if they are positive, they're surrounded,
Yep.
they have people in their life that are negative. So it's really awesome to just bring that together and figure out exactly what that problem is and find that positivity. Okay, so last question, just for all the businesses and leaders, entrepreneurs who are listening to this, what is your just one piece of advice from everything you learned from your entrepreneurship journey?
Get into a mastermind group. And if you don't get into somebody else's mastermind group, build your own. It is honestly one of the best things you'll ever do for you. I should have done it so much earlier in my life. Don't think that you don't have anything to add of value to a mastermind group. You always will. Last year, I started a small one called VIP Dinners. And it's basically a social group for very successful people. And they were so much more successful than me. And I was a little bit uncomfortable actually inviting these people and thinking, like, what value can I bring to them? But it was not just about me. It was about everybody in the group that was providing value for each other. And everybody was so appreciative of what I did and bringing them together. What I've learned from that is just incalculable. it's just tremendous value. So you must have a mastermind.
No, that's great. Great advice. I completely agree. Just having a community, a group, people who can just collaborate together. And that's how you kind of generate ideas and work together, create success. Great advice.
Be giving. Don't worry about that. It's not going to come back to you right now, right? Just literally just give to that group. You should be worried about your time. You can't give your time away to everyone, but if it's in a smaller group, a close-knit group, I'll just say just share, help that group. It's much better to actually give way more to fewer people. So let's say you want to give half an hour of your time to 50 people and you just give it once. It's way more valuable to take 5 people and give 10 hours to each of them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because you give half an hour of your time and giving you advice and help and whatever, they'll be appreciative, but it's not necessarily really going to get your relationship to like a strong level. And that's what you're going for. So find a few people that is worth building that relationship with, and then just pour into them, and it'll come back to you many times.
Great advice. Thank you, Patrick. I really appreciate you coming on the Zoom with me and just sharing your story, sharing your advice. I think it's going to just give so much value to people. So I really appreciate it. So if who's watching, listening, I have Patrick's information down below. If you want to be part of his Founder Nation or any other things that he's doing, that information's down below. You guys know my ebook is now live, so I'd love for you guys to get that success guide to provide you consumer spending information, that kind of thing, a couple of secrets here and there. That's also down below. I love you guys so much. Thank you, Patrick, again. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here.